Three, two, one, and we're going. What to talk about this week? So much happening. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Well, I think we should let's start with something that's a little concerning to me. J.B. Pritzker of the famous Chicago Pritzker family. I don't believe this man has pooped in his house or peed in his house 5 months. 5 or 6 months. I don't believe he has used the bathroom. What I'm seeing is in the news, apparently this man has removed all of the bathrooms from his home in order to avoid taxes. Now, he's in the middle of Chicago. He's not in like a outskirts of Chicago house. He's in a house that's like on the street in a nice area of Chicago, granted. But how nice is it really if some of the people there don't even have bathrooms? Like, you got to go at your house. And J.B. Pritzker, I don't want to, maybe you know what he looks like. Maybe you don't. I would say if you look at a picture of this man, and I say this respectfully, Mr. Pritzker, you look like someone who uses the bathroom a lot. And when I say use the bathroom a lot, I mean you use the bathroom. Like you use it. Some people, they go bathroom. They go to the bathroom. They go to the bathroom, do their stuff, and then they leave the bathroom. You don't go to the bathroom. You use the bathroom. You're holding the walls. You take up the bathroom. What you do in the bathroom leaks into other aspects of the home. You make it so other people don't want to use the bathroom. You use it, you abuse it, and then you lose it. And now you don't even have one. You have 0 bathrooms. You've removed all of the toilets he removed all of the toilets from his mansion in order to lower the taxable value of it from $6 million to $1 million. $1 million. It's $5 million. And I guess it saved him like almost $330,000. And it's some tax loophole where he lives is quote unquote uninhabitable. But if it's uninhabitable, how is it worth $1 million? In Chicago? I've lived in Chicago. I've been in Chicago. $1 million is too much. It's too much. What even neighborhood is he in? What neighborhood is Pritzker in? Let me look this up. Because I was in Lincoln Park, and if you're paying $1 million for Lincoln Park, there's nothing there except metrosexual families. That's it. Those are the only people. It's gay people. It's metrosexual families. And if you make a wrong turn, there might be some gangs. There's definitely some gangs. But the Pritzker estate. What are you doing? The Pritzker estate. They got a whole compound in LA. What is he taking toilets out for? This is crazy. This doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Condo in... besides the governor's mansion. No, did he take it out of the governor's mansion? Does the governor's mansion have no toilets? This is something that peeves me off about Europe. As an American, I grew up with an unalienable right to go pee and poop in public places. That is my right as an American to do that. And when you go to Europe, you realize that you have to pay like 25 cents. I got to pay a nickel to take a tinkle. It's crazy. And they say, well, I get to keep up the bathroom. And I say to them, I don't care. I have been in some swamps. I have been in some places. I have been in outhouses that we could use as chemical warfare against whoever. We could kill a bird in that place. We could kill an animal. You don't want to go in. These are radioactive places that I've been in. And everybody, you suck it in, you hold your breath, and that's it. That's all you got to do. That's all you got to do. Life doesn't always have to be porcelain palaces. You know what I mean? Sometimes you got to get down and dirty and you got to get back to your roots. You got to dig a hole and pop a squat. I don't care if it's at a McDonald's. I don't care if it's at the Palace of Versailles. I don't care where we are. when you got to go, you got to go. Is that not the play? I don't understand how the union of countries that makes a big deal about free healthcare makes me pay to poop. Is poop care not healthcare? Is poop care not healthcare? Is pooping regularly, having a regular bowel movement, having a healthy pee, is that not healthcare? Is that not avoiding infections, impactations, affectations, in the sense that, you know, as we covered last time, extreme constipation can really get to you. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm alone in this. Maybe we should all be taking toilets out of our homes, and we should just go back to throwing it on the street like we're French aristocrats or Romans. Maybe we're the heir to the Roman Empire. Napoleon Bonaparte, speaking of dirty French people, he thought he was the heir to this is so interesting. This man, and I think a lot of people don't understand Napoleon. They don't understand like the guy, because we hear about him as being one of like the greatest military generals of all time. And sure, he was a great tactician, but he was also this 5 foot whatever, slightly autistic, greasy, pot-bellied, beer-bellied, dad-bod, got a little bit of like a hyper extension to him that you see a lot in like elite football players and gym girlies nowadays. And he's got a pooch. There's a restaurant in the area that I grew up called Governors, and the mascot for Governors is like a fat Monopoly man, sort of somewhere between what's his name, the Weissmeister from the cartoon Frosty the Snowman, and the Monopoly man. You know who I'm talking about, Frosty the Snowman. Frosty the Snowman cartoon villain. Let's make sure we're on the same page. Villain Hinkle, Professor Hinkle. I don't know where I got Weissmeister from. Professor Hinkle. He looks somewhere between Professor Hinkle, but like fat, and he's one of those guys who's like his stomach is hanging out through his pants. You know what I mean? Like it looks like he's smuggling watermelons, type of deal. That's Napoleon's not there in like his early portraits, but he's on the way there. You know what I mean? And he's got a haircut that it's sort of like, if I had to name the haircut, I would call it seaweed on the beach. That would, I think, is how I would describe his later hair. His earlier haircuts, he had a mane. He was a lion's mane. He had a lion's mane of hair. He actually looked like from Curb Your Enthusiasm. He looked like that guy, Richard Lewis. He had a bit of a Richard Lewis hair about him. A mock, like a stallion, as he was, just this Frenchman. And like I said, he's a little autistic. Whenever you read about him, this man was obsessed with cannons. He was obsessed with cannons. There was, so for people who don't know, Napoleon Bonaparte, who was Napoleon de Bonaparte, and then as his career started to take off, he got rid of the D because it was like an Italian thing, and he started to go more French with it. He rises up through the ranks, right? Now, let me paint a picture, right? You're Napoleon, and you're making your way up through the military, right? Your girlfriend is the future queen of Sweden/Norway. Her sister is married to your older brother. You know, you got a good thing going. And this guy, he loves this woman. I mean, maybe loves is a strong word. He's infatuated with this woman. And he's making and he's rising up the ranks. Things are going okay. And then all of a sudden, he gets put in charge of putting down this civil war revolution thing that's going on at this time. And he gets downgraded from artillery guy, which, given his little autism, he's loving himself with the artillery cannons, though. Like, you can imagine him, like, you walk in on him Napoleon into his room, and he's got little cannon toys, and he's going pew, 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 la, pew, la, pew, la, pew, pew, and just having a good time. And he gets downgraded to infantry, and this guy was like, "What? I'm not going to I got a cough. I can't fight with that." And so he goes. He gets a doctor's note that says Napoleon has a disease that prevents him from doing anything other than playing with the artillery. And while he's, fighting this legal battle about getting to play with his cannons, he writes a book about like Cleason and Elise or something like that, he calls it. And it's like very on the nose. Like he very clearly writes this book about a soldier and his mistress and how they have this great love. And, at the time period, women who are marrying into this class, like some of them are marrying for love, but a lot of them are marrying so they don't get beheaded. You know what I mean? Like if your options are to marry this, scraggly Frenchman or be guillotined, there's plenty of women that will be like, you know what? He's away at war a lot. I really only have to bite the bullet once or twice here. It's better than being dead. And, and some of them would be like, cut my head off. I don't care. But to each their own. So anyway, he writes this book for this lady, and the revolution goes poorly thanks to Napoleon. And then all of a sudden, his friend, Paul was his name, and his friend comes to him and goes like, hey, will you help us defend this French area from revolutionists? And Napoleon's like, I don't know. And he was just like, you can play with the cannons if you want. And Napoleon was like, I'm there. Say less. I'm there. Done. Gets there. He comes up with this elaborate cannon defense, artillery defense, and it works. It works. Never stand between a autistic man and his passion. Never doubt that he comes up with the craziest schemes. And this was Napoleon's thing. They say one Napoleon was worth 40,000 soldiers. He was just so good at communicating orders and remembering where everybody is and war strategy. And, you see the diagnose. You see why I've diagnosed him. And so he does this. And while he's out there, he meets this girl named Josephine, who, his friend Paul had sort of had a thing with. Like they've been talking, to say the least. They've been, consorting, sort of like I would say a commander with benefits situation. And he starts seeing Josephine, and this guy, this little Napoleon, he was like, who is this lady? Who is this lady? Josephine? And he falls head over heels in love with her. Oh my gosh, does he love this woman? And Josephine, she already has a couple kids. She's got a daughter that she, for some reason, named Hortense. Never name your daughter Hortense. Don't do it. And Josephine, at this point, she's an older lady. I don't know exactly how old she is, but she was an older woman. She's had 2 pregnancies. I think she's like 4 to 6 years older than Napoleon, which for this age, like in France, we're talking 1800s. Like people aren't living super long. You're 6 years older. We're talking like with inflation today, that's like 20 years with inflation, with age inflation. So he's seeing a cougar for all intents and purposes. And he loves her. And they have a very toxic relationship, very toxic, where he's one of these guys who, he has a bad day at war and he comes home and he just projects it. People have bad days at work or whatever, like maybe the cooler was out of water, or maybe your boss humiliated you, whatever your struggle is. And you come home and you're in a bad mood. And because you haven't processed these emotions, you either project them onto somebody in the sense that when they talk to you, you sort of project your feelings onto them and read into how they're telling a story based on how you feel subconsciously, or you just come in, you take your anger out on other people. Neither is good. Neither is good. And so Napoleon, just, being a little autistic-y and being, not so great with his emotions, comes home and, he's not the best husband, but he loves her. He loves her. And he's saying crazy stuff to her. He's talking about how he doesn't know himself. And like I am consumed by you when I wake up. And maybe the most diabolical letter he ever wrote anybody. I believe this was to Josephine, but he's coming home from war and he's just won. And he's like, I'll be home in 3 days. Don't bathe. Brother, stop immediately. I don't want to ever hear you say that ever again. I know it's France. It's the 1800s, 1700s, whatever. Inexcusable thing to say. Crazy thing to say to somebody. Don't bathe. Don't bathe. I don't know. I don't want to know what that means. I don't want to know what that means, because to say don't bathe, 2 words, don't bathe, that's not something you just say that you've like never thought about. But like that's basically a code between you two. You're talking about people who have a relationship, and like, if I have a rapport with my friend and I go up to them and I go, hey, it happened, they're going to know what I'm talking about. And when I say, hey, don't bathe, the implications are clear. And so Napoleon, he has this relationship with Josephine. And as he's doing this, he's like taking over France and declaring himself emperor and all this jazz, and things are going well. And there's a problem. Josephine can't get pregnant. She can't get pregnant. Older woman. Can sometimes happen. Unfortunate. And so at the same time, Josephine, Napoleon's away at war. And he has, as any historian would say, Napoleon, he has middle-class values. And some of these middle-class values include cheating on your wife. And so he's away at war, and he's taking a mistress, as one does. And she's becoming a mistress, as one does. And he can't believe this. She cheated on me? She cheated on Napoleon? Pourquoi? Josephine, you cheat on me? 5'6" with a cute little French man belly and sickly greasy hair? I don't know why she would, cheat on you with the Sultan or wherever. I think it was like a Sultan or something. Anyway, he comes back and he goes, listen, if I can't get a kiddo, we need Napoleon too. This is just how it is. And so he passes on Josephine, and he lets her continue to be empress. This is the equivalent back in the day of you break up with somebody, but he left his pictures with her on his Instagram feed. She's still on his close friends thing on Instagram. They're still talking. They're still sending memes back and forth to one another. It's, they're broken up, but this dude, he loves her. He loves her. It was toxic, and he kind of liked it. He kind of liked it. He was a little, he was a little French guy, but he was not the most intelligent guy. He was good in war. That was about it. And so he goes to Marie Louise. Now, she is Austrian, and she's the daughter of the ruler of Austria, and Napoleon and the Austrian dude have had some beef. There's been some beef. There's been some battles. There's been some things said. There's been some people killed, but come on. You know what I mean? This is how it is. And so she has his kid, little blonde Napoleon, too. And, you know, he likes her. He loves Josephine. He likes this girl. You know, and I think that's a very relatable love story. I think it's a very relatable love story. I think a lot of us we know a friend just like Napoleon where he's maybe not the most attractive guy. He's doing well career-wise. And, he's able to punch above his weight class. And there's problems, but, he's confident. He's got confidence. And confidence really does a lot. I mean, this guy was like, I am the legacy of Rome. And I don't think he understood what that meant. The legacy of Rome. People don't know. Listen, let me tell you something right now. I want you to picture a Roman gladiator in your head right now. I want you to picture a Roman gladiator. Maybe you're thinking of Russell Crowe. Wouldn't blame you. Very good movie. The Roman gladiators, let me walk you through this. Let's use common sense. They had extremely heavy helmets that they had to wear. And if we know anything about progressive overload, that's going to bulk up the neck muscles. So they have these big, thick necks from wearing these heavy helmets. And then they got a sword, and some of them use nets. If you use nets and you're a gladiator, you're a loser. All right? You're a loser. Showing up to fight for your life against a lion and you brought a fishing net. Loser. Anyway, the real boys, they brought spears, they brought, swords and a shield. And the thing about a sword and a shield is they don't weigh the same. Shields are lighter than swords, and or vice versa. So if you have one arm that's got a lighter object and another arm that's got a heavy, steel sword in the other hand, the muscles on one side are going to overdevelop. And a lot of these gladiators had one big arm and one little arm. And they were muscle fat. They were muscly fat. So we got these kind of muscle fat, one big arm, one little arm, thick neck dudes they're like diabetic lobsters. That's what they are. Like Roman gladiators are built like diabetic lobsters. They look like Larry the Lobster from SpongeBob. That's a Roman gladiator. You can see it in old paintings of the gladiators at the time. A lot of times you look and you're like, oh, they got one bigger arm. And then people think it's artistic perspective. No, it's not. These people loved realism to a fault. They loved realism. They were carving naked people all day. You don't do that unless you love realism. They were dedicated to realism. That's those people. They were copying the Greeks, and sometimes they would get so frustrated they just enslave them and make them, or maybe not enslave, but they would hire them and have them do the sculptures. And you see a lot of people obsessed with proportions too. And that sort of thing. And you got to imagine if you're a Roman gal and most of these dudes are soldiers and you got a bunch of guys with one big arm, one little arm and thick necks walking around, I guess if everybody has it, then it's not that big of a deal. But if there's one dude who's got both arms and they're the same size, he's got two normal adult-sized arms. He doesn't have one baby arm and one adult arm. And his neck is slim. He's got a slim neck, toned neck. In the same way we look for six-pack abs now, he's got a slim neck on him. Got a neck like an ostrich. And he's got two normal-sized arms. And big back. From all that thrusting with the spear. I mean, that's your guy. You see those pictures and you're like, a girl can wish. A girl can wish. Oh my gosh. I wonder if it'd be insulting. If everybody, imagine right now, all of your guy friends, all the boys, and all the guys that are just out there in general in your area, They all got one big arm, one big muscular arm, and one little weenie arm. And you're out, and you get into a kerfuffle with somebody, and they threaten you with the weenie arm. Is that insulting? Like if they raise the weenie arm fist to you, and they're like, "Nim, nim, nim, nim," are you insulted by? I might be insulted by that. That might be worse. Like, what would be worse, getting the middle finger from the big arm, or getting like an angry fist from the weenie arm? Oof, I don't know. If Napoleon were really the legacy of Rome, he would have pursued this body. He had enough problems going on with his own body. To add a comically big arm and a thick neck might have been the scariest thing you could possibly see as a Russian. You've heard all of these stories about Napoleon, and he's coming. And then you see this creature, this little creature, come wobbling over in all white suit with this big, stupid looking captain's hat, and he's dragging one big arm, and his back's all hyped up, and his pooch is sticking out, and he's got this grubby hair, and you would be like, where did you find this guy? Did you find him under a bridge? Did he try to tell you a riddle? What the heck? This is crazy. Oh my gosh. What a wild sight to see. And then he just has the most incredible military tactics. Like, you can't beat him. And then you got to go back home and you got to explain to your family. You guys, you won't. He was like, that's what he sounds like. That's what French sounds like. The Russians is, he's just making these noises, and he's commanding this enormous army, and we're firing. He's got all these cannons, and he's big on the cannons, and he won't give up on the cannons, and he's dragging his hairy knuckle arm around, and he's commanding the forces with his weenie arm, and he's got this gross haircut and this distended baby gut. He is the greatest fighter you've ever seen. You don't know, and your wife will be like, how do you let this guy beat you? He's coming to kill your dog. And you'd be like, listen, babe, he's unbelievable. I can't explain it. I know he looks like the dude from the dungeon in Goonies. Like, hey, you guy, like that dude. And he comes over. Oh, what a thing to try to explain to your wife. At least Russian women are understanding. Very emotionally available. Oh my gosh. What a wild time to be alive. Any of those time periods. Just crazy times to be alive. And you got to think, like, through all of the insanity of those time periods, like the lead in the pipes, the taking your family to the Coliseum to watch people get murdered. You know what I mean? Like, nowadays, if a cartoon swears, you got to let parents know about it. Parents used to take their kids to watch people get stabbed and eaten by lions. We're built different. They were built differently. Physically, as we've just gone over. Physically built like goblins. But mentally, just imagine what that does. Imagine what that does to you. You go to school the next day, and it's like, hey, nowadays we're like, hey, did you see the game last night? Oh my gosh, LeBron, 40 points. And you're like, did you see Maximus? Ripped the alligator ripped his toe off, ripped his throat. I know. Oh my gosh, dude. Ripped it right off. And then the teacher's like, all right, everybody, now it's time. We're going to learn about the star. Oh, speaking of the stars. Apparently Napoleon was big into numerology and like astrology and stuff. Or maybe just numerology. He was big into numerology. And like luck. And you gotta think, like, if you're him and you're thinking about everything that's gone well for you, and you look in the mirror and you go, there's gotta be luck. There has to be a God. Like, there's no other explanation for my success. There's no other explanation. And as crazy as like all of that is when we think about Rome and we think about Napoleon and we think about all that stuff, you know what they all had in common? They had toilets in their homes. J.B. Pritzker removed the toilets from his house where he eats food and then has nowhere. Like, you imagine you are a Chicagoan and you've worked hard, you've made millions of dollars, and you buy a $5.5 million home in a nice neighborhood. And you're thinking, oh, I can finally raise my family safely, where I don't have to worry about violence. I don't have to worry about all of this other stuff. And then you go out Monday morning, you take a big fresh whiff of air, and something smells off. What is that? I can't put my finger on it. What the heck? And you're looking around on the sidewalk, and you're like, it's such a nice neighborhood. What could smell so foul? And then you look up, and you don't see the bright morning sun. No, you don't see the rising morning sun. You see J.B. Pritzker with his butt cheeks out the window, taking a poop and letting it right onto the sidewalk. And you're like, is that the governor? The former governor? What in the world? Or the current governor? Maybe he's the current governor. Is he the current governor? It's crazy. If he's the current governor of Illinois, that's even crazier. Current governor, Illinois. That's even crazy. That's a crazy move. Regardless, but if he is the current governor of Illinois, holy macaroni. You look up and you watch the governor of your state pooping out of a window and peeing out of a window. What are we doing here? What are we doing? I love Chicago. I think Chicago is a great city. Maybe I didn't say that earlier, but I think it's a beautiful it's very nice. It's not like Boston, but it kind of has like a similar older feel. I like that there's lots of trees. There's lots of very walkable city, great zoo. But, and this is a big but, maybe not J.B. Pritzker big but it's a big but. The violence is crazy. It's too much. It's too much. A little bit of violence is okay. A little bit of violence, like Boston has a little bit of violence. You go there, you see someone yell at somebody in traffic, it is what it is. Chicago's got too much violence. Too much violence. There's a threshold. There's too much. I was sleeping soundly in my apartment, and I wake up in the morning, and the streets are weirdly quiet. Very weirdly quiet. And then I look on the news, and what do I see on the news? That there was a gang shootout. There was a gang conflict the street over that emptied 54 rounds into the street. 54 rounds. They fired at each other. And people were arrested, thankfully, and then let off by the assistant attorney general because she deemed, and this is her words, not mine, that it was mutual combat. What? Mutual combat? That's not what mutual combat is. Mutual combat is so if you're a little itty bitty police officer, if you're Napoleon Bonaparte, little big armed, pot bellied police officer, and there's a bunch of big dudes and they're fighting and they're throwing punches, you don't have to get involved and hurt yourself. You can wait if you want. That's mutual combat. Mutual combat doesn't account for a full-on gang fight with weaponry. Right? They're saying that people they can do it because they consented to it. They can't consent to violence, consent to a shootout. What, did they have their parents sign a permission slip and say yeah, I'm okay with Timmy going to the shootout as long as he's safe and he's home by 8? What are we doing? What are we doing? Can I get out of all shootings now if I just tell the shooter I didn't consent to be here? I don't have a consent form. I don't consent to this. It's non-consensual violence. I actually don't consent to being shot right now. So you have to turn around. There's you could see that just frustration. That's so crazy. What a crazy thing. And that's going on And somehow that's less crazy than taking all of the toilets out of your home. Like I would assume he's having dignitaries over. I would assume he's having important people. He may or may not run for nomination for the Democratic choice for president. His name's been put out there. How can you be running for president and you don't have a toilet in your home? What if you have to have an important dignitary over? You have to have like Putin over. George Bush had Putin to his place in Maine in Kennebunkport. You can bet your bottom dollar that Putin was like, "Do you have a restroom right now?" You imagine his face when George looks at him and goes, "We ain't got a single toilet on the premises. We had to." It's a darn tootin' thing. Like we we had to take them all out. Taxes were crazy, and so it's technically uninhabitable. And like the Russian translator having to be like, wait, just so we're clear, before I tell the dictator, what you're saying there's not one toilet anywhere here, George Bush, not a one. He goes, okay. And then he doesn't tell Putin, there's not a toilet here. There's no toilets. And then Putin be like, there's no toilets. And the Russian translator be like, there's no toilets. There's no toilets anywhere. It was something to do with lowering taxes. Oh my gosh. What a crazy thing. That's maybe my favorite thing. And like I'm saying, J.B. Pritzker looks like someone who has to use the bathroom a lot. He's dropping stinkers, hot stinkies. He's got hot snakes and all the other stuff that you don't want. There's definitely got dysbiosis, 100%. Oh my gosh. Oh man. People are strange. I saw a lady today injecting her face with salmon sperm. Crazy. And when they do it, she starts like bleeding. She's like bleeding out of her face and neck. What in the world? I'm sure it does something, but like, is there no better way? You're telling me the only way to do this is to inject microneedle salmon sperm into my face? That's the only way. At what point is it not worth it anymore? At what point is it not worth it? Like, at some point, you have to say, like, yeah, I could do it, and maybe I'd look a little younger, maybe I'd live a little longer. But do I want to tell people, do I want to look my family in the eye and say to them, because people are going to go, assuming it works, people are going to look at you and they go, oh my gosh, Bethany, you look amazing, Bethany. And Bethany's going to go, yeah, thank you. And they're going to be like, what do you do? And Bethany's going to be like, well, I do stuff. And they're like, yeah, but what stuff? Like, you look phenomenal. And Bethany's going to have to look her friends and loved ones in the eye and go, well, salmon? And they'll be like, the fish? And she'll say, yeah. Well, it has to do with salmon. And they'll go, oh, like they're omega-3s, like you get a lot of omega-3s. And she'll go, no, I don't eat the salmon. And they'll go, oh, well, what do you do with the salmon? And Bethany will go, well, I have their sperm microneedled into my face. And the family go, oh, I wish you hadn't told us that. I wish you hadn't told us that, Bethany. Because now we judge you. Benefits of salmon sperm injection. So the benefits are calming irritation and replenishing moisture. So instead of going to Walmart and getting a moisturizer, getting some Aveeno, she's gone to Salmon Weeno and gotten salmon sperm. This is crazy. And you don't even know like the quality of the salmon. Like a lot of salmon have like heavy metals and stuff in them? Like that can't be good for your face. And a lot of Swedish salmon, fun fact, a lot of Swedish salmon are all hopped up on anti-anxiety medications. And it's affecting them very deeply. A lot of people don't know this. A lot of salmon in Sweden right now, and I think in Norway, they're getting like there's runoff of like drugs into the water systems, and it's getting into these streams and getting into places where salmon try to go upstream in Sweden, and they're getting big doses of tramadol and clobazam. And not only are they getting to the Baltic Sea in record time, but they're venturing far out. They're going, God forbid, towards Finland. I hate to say it. They're going closer to Finland. And they're being much braver because they don't have anxiety. They don't have salmon anxiety. They're not worried. They're on top of the world. You got to think like they're hitting those waters and they're going, you know what? I feel invincible right now. Let's go. And the people, you got to be careful because if you're taking tramadol and clobazam, and then you're trying to eat salmon because you're trying to eat healthy and you're getting extra dosage, you're like, I feel really good after I eat Swedish salmon. I feel very less anxious. It's just a whole thing. So you're getting Swedish salmon sperm. Assumingly, you might be getting some runoff of tramadol and clobazam and then heavy metals injected into your face. And then your face is just bleeding. And then on the other end, you look like a little bit different. But we all know, like people, they do stuff to themselves all the time. And they inject themselves with crazy things. And they come up to you and they're like, I had stuff done. And I'll be like, yeah, I noticed. Like, I guess to each their own, but that's so crazy. Just, that's so unnecessary. Like, you can just moisturize. All you had to do was moisturize. You did not have to inject yourself. And I can't stress this enough. You don't have to do anything with salmon sperm. You can leave it alone. You can never touch it. It's perfectly acceptable to just not be involved in it. I cannot stress this enough to anyone listening. At no point do you need to be involved in anything of the sort. Oh my gosh. Oh, what a time to be alive. What a time to be alive. What was this? What was the other thing? Oh my gosh, yes. So I had personally a little bit of a little moment today. So I'm trying to go to the gym. And here's the thing about my hips is my hips from hockey are no bueno. I did a lot of numbers. On them, a lot of high numbers, a lot of high mileage on these hips. They don't move like you'd wish. And I have a little bit of a labral tear in my left hip that I have to deal with. So I can't like play hockey and can't skate too much right now. But I've been trying to fix it with some PT, just get the muscles around the hip a lot stronger, strengthen like the glute med, especially strengthen the gluteus, strengthen my abductors and my adductors, get just like generally stronger, not just like quads and calves and tibs and lower back and abs and hip flexors and like the ones that I think are a little bit more mainstreamed now, like those muscles that a lot of people think about. Trying to hit a lot of those support muscles and just try to stabilize the whole region in general so that not too much pressure gets put on like the joint itself. And to do this, I've put together a workout routine that includes obviously, because I'm trying to hit adductors and abductors. I have some good girls and I got some bad girls in there. I got my goodies and my baddies in there. And for anybody who doesn't know what those are the abductor and the adductor machine. When you basically sit down, you have pads either on the outside or the inside of your knee, and you either squeeze them together, that would be good girl, and you push them, or you push them apart and spread your legs, and that would be bad girl. And I try to get in the morning when there's not too many people that would be there to see me do these, because I shake like a dog in the wind when I'm doing these. I'm vibrating. I'm vibrating. If if there were elephants nearby, they would form an emergency circle. That's how much I'm vibrating. So and shaking. And so I try to get in early to do it, but the problem is the people that are in early are like old people, and they're the ones who are also using the machine. So there's sometimes a line. So you got to find the right time to show up. You got to show up around 8:30 to 9:30. That's the time when the old people are coming out and there's not too many new people in for the day yet. And I've been finding this slot really good. But the other problem is that sometimes I see people at this time period that I thought at least we were on good terms, but maybe we aren't, possibly, because every time I've tried to get these people's attention, it's not gone great. I've gotten dismissed. I have been ignored. I have been silenced, as Meghan Markle would say. I have been silenced. And even one day I held the door for them and their kids said hi, and they said nothing to me. And so I was like, oh boy, maybe I'm in trouble here. And, maybe they heard my first episode of my podcast and they were just like, oh, this guy sucks. And so, yeah, I don't know where I stand. And so whenever I go in, I have to keep my two eyes out. I'm like a deer in headlights. And, if I get there closer to 9:30, they're usually done by then. So I get there today and I'm on the lookout. And I don't see anybody. And I think the coast is clear. Oh, actually, walking into the gym, there was a girl that was like 20 feet ahead of me, but she had these little itty bitty shuffle strides. Like she was not covering distance. And I stride as I stride. I have a long stride. I got longer legs. I'm a big guy. And so I'm starting to make up distance. And it's that weird thing of like, you're coming up from behind on a lady and you feel weird about it because you don't want her to feel weird about it. And you're like, do I just start to walk slower and try to keep the distance equidistant? Or do I just blow by her, that sort of thing, but I don't want to spook her. And it was so cold in the wind today. And I was like, I don't want to be out here longer. So I'm just striding. I'm like, I'm going to blow past. And then we turn a corner and now we're looking at the doors and she's going to be able to see my reflection. Oh, it was horrible. So I'm already a little rattled going in. So I get in there and now I'm avoiding this girl that I almost, jump scared on the way in. Snuck up on her like Jaws. And, I'm looking for this other person. I don't see this other person. And I'm going, oh, great. Okay, well, I don't have to figure out what's going on with that today. And so I get over and I get right into my workout. I get right into my good girls and my bad girls. And I'm shaking like a junkyard dog. My knees are shaking. And I'm working through some pain. And I'm working through that set. 170 pounds. Over 210 pounds. Like I'm squeezing and I'm pushing and I'm spreading and I'm good girl, I'm bad girl. And then all of a sudden, to my great, I don't even know if embarrassment's a strong enough word, horror, my great horror, not only is one former coworker there, but all of them are there for a pickleball tournament. And I'm compromised, legs spread, what do I do? I can't make eye contact. I pull my hood up and I'm trying to avoid, being seen by everybody. This is I'm trying to come off of this thing better. It's like a breakup where you want to show them that you're doing better. And that's not the power and the energy I project when I'm spread eagled on an adductor machine with tears running down my face because my legs are shaking so much. And then when you try to walk away and seem confident and you're all bow-leggy and shaky, you lose all sorts of whatever. It's just not it. It's not the way it should be. I had to sneak out of there before they saw. I had places to be anyway. I had places to be. That's at least what I tell myself. But crazy times. Crazy times. I was able to go hide in the bathroom for a little bit and try to come up with a plan of escape, but which is not something I'd be able to do at JB Pritzker's house, as we know. And I'm in there trying to look like, trying to get in shape, obviously, too. Like, not only do I want my hip to feel better, but like I'm also trying to get build bigger legs. I'll tell you this too. I fell victim to this very early on in my life. Is I dated a girl with bigger legs than me, and you don't think about it as a guy until it's right there in your face. And I don't know why this is. The girls with big legs date guys with small legs. It's sort of like wrestlers and volleyball players. They're moths to a flame, flies to a light, peanut butter to jelly spread. You spread some jelly on bread and that peanut butter is like, ooh, get me in there, buddy. Get me in there. I want to be a part of that. You can't have this party without me. That is volleyball players and wrestlers. When I was at the University of Virginia, you would see them out and about. The wrestlers would be dating the volleyball players, and you would see these 5'9", 5'8", just tree stumps of men dating these 6'2", mostly leg, 6'3" volleyball girls, and they'd be just holding. It'd look like a babysitter walking her child around, and it was the funniest thing. There was actually a guy who just won the national championship. It went viral because he had a girlfriend who was way taller than him. And I think it's the funniest thing in the world. I don't know what it is about we could speculate. You know what I mean? Maybe that's what Napoleon needed. Maybe that's what Napoleon. How tall was Josephine? Was she really tall? How tall? Because that would make a lot of sense to me. Because that would make a lot of sense to me. How tall was Napoleon's wives? That would make, if it hits with Mary Louise of Austria, 5'8", which is pretty big. Both women were taller than Napoleon. Interesting. Yeah, there it is. There it is. Dating taller women. Oh my gosh. It's a thing, and it's been a thing. For a very, very long time, it's been a thing. This goes back. This might be just ingrained. And maybe it's one of those things of genetically speaking, you have this very strong, super athletic, macho dude. And really his only drawback, evolutionary speaking, is that he's not big enough to ride a roller coaster. And then you have this woman who has the solution to that, but also is athletic and is also powerful and is also this super athlete, and you get them together and you could probably get something in the middle. You know what I mean? Maybe you don't, but that makes sense to me. Those super athletes are always very interesting. There's a few couples that I've seen over the years where you're just like, God, that kid's going to be just good at whatever they do. Their parents are incredibly athletic. What an advantage. What a super advantage. My parents are athletic. My dad was really good athlete. My mom, not so much. She played ping pong, but she played it in the PAE. She played in the PAE at our high school, and I played post AE, post Asian era, where I had actual Asian. I had to play ping pong and badminton. My mom, a former champion, she was playing against kids from Old Town. I had to play the regional champion of Shanghai, in ping pong and badminton. This dude brought his own racket from China and smoked us. I felt like I was in the Olympics. I had no chance. I had no chance at all. I had no chance at all. And so I think under normal circumstances, I think what I'm saying is there needs to be an asterisk. There needs to be an asterisk because I competed in a different era. You're telling me you hit 40 home runs? Well, or you struck out, you threw 40 perfect games or something? Well, I'm pitching in the steroid era. That's essentially what happened. I had no chance whatsoever. Oh my gosh. So that's something. Oh man. What's interesting too, to think about is I started watching World War II in color last night. I've seen it without color. Now I'm going back and through and watching it with color. And the first episode, it's not funny, but it's funny because they bring in, so there's a Treaty of Versailles. Speaking of the French, there's a Treaty of the Versailles, and the Versailles basically says to Germany, you can't have an army over 100,000 people. And the leader of Germany, Mr. Hitler, comes along, and he's like, I don't believe they're full of crap. I'm going to raise an army. And so he starts to raise an army, and it turns out they were, in fact, full of crap, and they didn't do anything. And as he's raising this army, you have Chamberlain, who's the Prime Minister of England. He goes over to talk to Hitler, and he gets him to sign this document that basically says, I will not invade other places. I got it wrong. So Hitler takes back the Rhinelands, which is Western Germany. And his thinking is that like nobody's going to do anything. And he takes the Rhinelands, and then the prime minister is sort of like, but like, I know we told him not to, but it's basically Germany. Like a lot of them are German, blah, 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 like not a big deal. And then he goes like, it's not like he's going to go and take Austria. And then it cuts to him taking Austria. And it cuts back to, the prime minister. And the prime minister's like, listen, look at the Austrians. Like, they're clearly not sad about this. They identify with Germany. Hitler's from Austria himself. Like, I feel pretty confident that this is where it's going to end. And then it cuts to Hitler invading the Sudetenlands. And they come back to Chamberlain, and he's looking a little bit more stressed. And he goes, this is a lot. Okay, well, he's probably going to stop here. Let me go talk to him. And so he flies out, and he goes and talks to him. And he gets him to sign a treaty that basically says, I will not invade Czechoslovakia. And he's got Mussolini there, and he's got a few other people, whoever the leader of France was at the time was there. He's got some people there, and he gets him in private to sign this document. He comes back to the UK, and he goes, look at this here paper. And that's not, he goes, I have this paper, and that's a bad accent, but that's essentially what he said. I have this paper, and it bears the signature of one Adolf Hitler saying he will not invade. And everyone's like, yippee! And it cuts to him invading Czechoslovakia. And at this point, he's like, well, but he signed a piece of paper. And then he invades Poland. And at this point, Chamberlain is just like, okay, well, that's too far. And then he declares war. And then it basically cuts back to him like, I'd like to send in my formal resignation. Just as wrong as you could be at every step of the way. That's really like, I think that's one of the interesting things when you look at the start of World War II is just like how it could have been avoided if people had just like believed what they were looking at, where as you see him taking the Rhineland and Austria and the Sudetenland and then like maybe he's conquering, maybe the guy who's just taken 4 areas of Europe is looking to take over Europe. Shocker. And even the French, once the war had started very early on, the Nazis had a lot of tanks in the Ardennes, and they had like so many tanks that there was like traffic. And the French scouts, the French recon team goes back to the leader and they're like, yeah, there are hundreds, if not thousands of tanks, and they are not moving. There are a lot there. They're there. And the French leader's like, pulse. They are attacking in Netherlands and Belgium, and they're trying to get the beachhead so they can invade Europe or invade the United Kingdom. And the French scout was like, I'm not saying that's not true. I'm just telling you there's lots of tanks and they are there. Like, there's lots of tanks there. And the leader was like, well, all he had to do was scramble some jets and bomb them, and they were basically sitting ducks. So, lesson learned. If you see something, say something. But also, if people are telling you things, like, don't just immediately discount them. You know what I mean? Like, hear them out, but then, be honest. So I think in that spirit, we've been going for about an hour now, so I'll probably call it here. But in that spirit, I think I'd just like to end on the following message. Please put a toilet in your house, JB Pritzker. Please. Put a toilet in your house. Because if I come over there and I see a bucket in the corner of the room, unmarked bucket, and I look at you, and you look at me, and then I look at the bucket, and then I look back to you, and I give you the eyes, and I say, JB. And you go, taxes, man. And I go, JB. And you go, $330,000. And I go, JB, we're the governor, and we're pooping in a bucket in the corner? That's crazy. That's so crazy. I just can't get over it. I'm sorry. Anyway. That's number 2. I might have been actually less informational than number 1, if that's even possible. But we'll probably return at a later time. All right. Bye, everybody.